Imagine an African empire so powerful that it rivaled Rome, controlled strategic trade routes, and minted its own currency to negotiate with the greatest civilizations of antiquity. This empire existed, and its name was Axum. But why does almost no one talk about it? The truth is that Axum dominated the trade of gold, ivory, and spices, ensuring its influence throughout the ancient world, yet its history was forgotten over the centuries. Today we will reveal how this African empire rivaled Rome and Byzantium, controlling the wealth that powered the world. Get ready to learn the impressive story of Axum, the empire that challenged giants and left its mark on history. But before we dive into this incredible story, make sure you're subscribed to our channel and hit the bell so you won't miss any of our videos filled with curiosities about the Roman Empire and its connections to the African world. Origins: the awakening of the kingdom of Axum. Did you know that Axum was not always a unified kingdom, but rather a collection of small communities spread throughout the Ethiopian plateau? Get ready to discover how it all began. Before there was a kingdom of Axum, there were tribes cultivating basic cereals such as wheat and barley, as well as raising livestock in mountainous areas. Contact with neighboring regions like Egypt and the Red Sea began to shape the culture of these peoples. Each community had its own leadership, yet they shared similar customs and traditions. There was a strong emphasis on the worship of deities linked to nature and agricultural prosperity, as the mountains provided shelter while the valleys ensured survival. It was precisely this strategic geographic position that caught the attention of traders from various parts of the world. Realizing the opportunity to exchange goods with distant peoples, these communities united in alliances, paving the way for the emergence of a stronger political entity that would come to be known as Axum. Building alliances, the trade path. If you think the kingdom of Axum grew solely through military might, wait until you discover how trade became the greatest weapon of its people. The Axum region attracted Greek, Arab, Egyptian, and later Roman traders. Over time, routes emerged that crossed the Red Sea and the Ethiopian highlands, transporting spices, precious metals, and agricultural products to distant markets. This constant flow transformed Axum into a cultural convergence point. Every merchant brought not only goods, but also new customs, languages, and religious beliefs. This mosaic of influences resulted in a curious population, open to innovation. It was during this period that the first rudimentary exchange houses appeared, allowing local tribes to trade their gold and ivory for textiles, wine, and metal artifacts from the Mediterranean. This level of commercial organization was rare on the African continent at that time and made Axum an essential hub on the ancient global trade routes. Have you ever wondered how these trade agreements shaped the destiny of Axum and even Rome? Leave your like now so we can continue bringing you such impactful stories. The Axumitic coins, a symbol of power. Ready to see how a simple piece of metal could forever change the course of an empire? Then come discover the fascinating story of the Axumite coins. Unlike many African kingdoms, Axum took an audacious step, minting its own coins. Gold, silver, and bronze were stamped with royal symbols and later on, even Christian symbols. Having its own currency wasn't just about economic convenience. It was also a way to demonstrate authority and independence in the face of powers like Rome. Each coin bore the king's effigy and inscriptions in local languages, becoming a tool for political propaganda. These coins also strengthened trade ties as they offered reliability to international partners. By becoming a recognized currency issuer, Axum leaped forward in foreign relations, facilitating more robust negotiations and commercial transactions. King Ezana and the arrival of Christianity. How did a young king with a determined gaze become responsible for transforming the entire spiritual identity of a kingdom? Next, you will discover Ezana's journey. When Ezana ascended the throne, he was a young adult, surrounded by challenges. In addition to managing the kingdom, he needed to ensure the continuity of trade and maintain good diplomatic relations. But his destiny would change when he met Frumencio, the Syrian missionary who arrived at court unexpectedly. Frumencio and his brother Edesio ended up in Axum after a shipwreck. By fate's coincidence, they earned the king's trust and began teaching about Christianity and other ideas from the Mediterranean. Ezana, impressed by Frumencio's words, eventually converted to Christianity. This was a monumental step. Axum became one of the first Christian kingdoms in the world, even before many European regions. Ezana began incorporating Christian symbols on Axumite coins and building places of Christian worship. The alliance with the Eastern Roman Empire intensified, creating an even stronger religious and commercial bond. Did you know this intriguing detail about Axum's conversion to Christianity? Write your thoughts in the comments and share your ideas. Frumencio, the peacemaker between worlds. What if your greatest purpose in life emerged after a major disaster? Discover how Frumencio became the link between Axum and the Christian faith. Frumencio, a man with a gentle voice and serene gaze, arrived in Axum under tragic circumstances due to a shipwreck. However, this misfortune turned into a turning point in the kingdom's history. Gaining influence at court and serving as a royal tutor, he used his kindness and faith to sow the seeds of Christianity, all while respecting the local beliefs. Gradually, he earned Ezana's trust, drawing the throne closer to the new religion. It was thanks to Frumencio's efforts that the Patriarch of Alexandria recognized Axum as part of the nascent Christendom. He sent bishops and guided the structuring of the Ethiopian Church, consolidating Axum's position on the international stage as a Christian ally. King Caleb and the military campaigns. Would you like to know how Axum expanded beyond its territory? Wait until you learn about the military campaigns led by Caleb. Unlike Ezana, whose glory was marked by religious conversion and diplomacy, Caleb became known as a natural military strategist. Tall, strong, and with an imposing gaze, he bore the weight of the throne and a desire to expand Axum's borders. Amid tensions in the southern Arabian Peninsula, Caleb launched offensives to defend Christian communities and keep the trade routes free of threats. His conquests were significant. By defeating the kingdom of Himyar, he gained international prestige and reinforced alliances with Byzantium. Caleb's ability to command troops and forge post-conquest agreements made Axum a military power as well as an economic and religious one. However, his campaigns also brought challenges, as the kingdom now had to govern distant territories, dealing with peoples of diverse cultures. Leave your like if you want more stories about the great campaigns of the Kingdom of Axum and the forces that shaped Africa and the Middle East. The relationship with Rome and Byzantium. Want to know how Axum came to be respected by the greatest empires of its time? Stay with us as we uncover these diplomatic agreements. From the earliest trade exchanges, Axum and Rome maintained a mutually beneficial relationship. While Rome needed gold, ivory, and spices, Axum benefited from the import of wine, fine textiles, and the Roman influence in the Mediterranean world. With the arrival of Christianity in Axum, the Eastern Roman Empire, Byzantium, grew even closer. The two powers shared the same faith, which strengthened political and diplomatic bonds. This closeness materialized in cultural exchanges, ambassadorial visits, and even military alliances, such as Axum's intervention in southern Arabia to protect persecuted Christian communities. Axum earned worldwide respect, being cited as one of the four great powers of its time, alongside Rome, Persia, and China. Challenges of the 7th century, the rise of Islam. Have you ever wondered how Axum faced a new power emerging in the Middle East? Let's see how the rise of Islam changed the rules of the game. The emergence of Islam in the early 7th century revolutionized the entire geopolitics of the Red Sea and the Mediterranean. The trade routes, once dominated by Axum and Byzantium, came under the control of rapidly expanding Muslim Arabs. Axum's position as a privileged intermediary began to weaken. After all, many of the key ports were captured or redirected to new routes controlled by the Muslim caliphates. Even so, Axum maintained a degree of diplomacy by sheltering Muslims persecuted in Mecca, an act of hospitality that forged a bond of respect with the early Islamic communities. Nevertheless, the loss of these strategic ports severely undermined Axum's economy. Do you agree that the rise of Islam completely changed the trade map? Leave your comment sharing your view on this fascinating period. The decline and retreat of Axum. Axum's glory seemed eternal, but nothing lasts forever. Want to understand how this powerful kingdom eventually retreated into the mountains? With new maritime and overland routes slipping out of its control, Axum saw its sources of wealth diminish. Without trade, maintaining a strong army became even more difficult, and the kingdom began retreating into the interior highlands. Internal politics also grew complicated. Lacking the abundant resources of the past, disputes arose among nobles and regional leaders who sought to preserve their fiefdoms and status. It was in this defensive movement that Axum became increasingly isolated. The city, once vibrant and connected to the world, gradually transformed into a religious and symbolic center, cherished for its Christian tradition, but no longer wielding the same power as before. Legacy and cultural heritage. Finally, let's discover how the spirit of Axum continues to live on and inspire generations, even centuries after its official decline. Even today, the name Axum carries an invaluable historical weight. It's monumental. The stelae still stand as silent witnesses to the might that once dominated trade routes and stood equal to Rome. The Christian heritage is present in the liturgies of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, which trace back to Frumencio's missions and Ezana's reign. The city of Axum is revered as the cultural and spiritual cradle of the entire region, attracting devotees and scholars from around the world. For historians, Axum is proof that Africa had advanced, influential civilizations capable of shaping the destiny of empires like Rome. Its legacy remains as a rare gem of antiquity, inviting us to reflect on what we can still learn from this grand past. The kingdom of Axum left a profound mark on the history of the ancient world, connecting Africa, the Mediterranean, and the Arabian Peninsula through trade routes, diplomacy, and faith. From Ezana's rise and conversion to Christianity, through Caleb's military campaigns, to its decline in the face of Islam's ascent, Axum always found ways to adapt, even if in the end it retreated into its mountains. Yet the fascination remains. Its coins, stelae, and temples tell stories of past glories that inspire us to understand how culture, faith, and trade can unite peoples separated by vast distances. Axum reminds us that African history is as rich and complex as that of any other great empire of antiquity. If you enjoyed this journey through time and want more fascinating stories, subscribe to our channel, leave your like and share this video with your friends. Help us show that the ancient world was much more interconnected than we can imagine. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video about the glory and mysteries of ancient Rome and its allied kingdoms.